Okay, so everybody knows everybody except Kathy. So why don't we start with Kathy, and why don't you briefly tell us who you are, and if perhaps you are related to anybody at this table.
I am one who has received the gracious gift of God through heritage by belonging to the Ketter family and to the Wilson family who attend here at Crossroads. So, boy, am I blessed. It's such an honor to call myself a Ketter, cook, Ketter. I live in Northern California, just above Sacramento. I left a husband there. He does not like to be alone, so he went to be with my little bears. I call him my Velcro husband. He has to attach to somebody, so he does that. I am just about to retire from 22 years of service in public education. And along the way, I have been editing. I've had the privilege of editing for pastors and friends, my mom, and it's been so fun to just be part of projects along the way. There's a few reasons why I really, really love editing. And the first one is that I'm a word nerd. I think of, if it's okay if I share this, I think of words like, Talia, my niece, an artist, thinks of paint colors and how they go together and textures, and my son thinks of musical arrangements, and my other niece thinks of room arrangements, and I'm just so fascinated with the way words come together and form an arrangement on a page, so much so that sometimes I will reread a page over and over again just to see how they're arranged. And I think I'm as fascinated with the structure of the Witten language as I am with their meaning, and that's weird. I know. I am so crazy about it that I read through my emails 5 or 6 times. I correct my own texts and definitely other people's texts, at least in my mind. That needs a period. I will correct billboards driving down the... Would somebody please tell America's Best In people that America's needs an apostrophe? Would someone do that? That makes me crazy. And I've even edited the Word of God before, unknowingly. Passage of it, and what do you know, I've rearranged the whole scripture. So that's how nerdy I am about it, and I absolutely love it because I get to make other people shine by doing that. Make their story, their words just really come to life. And it is such a pleasure for me. And I'm one of the first ones that ever get to read a manuscript, which is, I think, an honor. So I'm looking forward to these next few years of my life when I get to step more into that realm. I've done it on the side and periodically, but now I'm looking forward to more of it. So, sorry, Bob, but I just wanted to share a little bit about who I am.
Okay. So, Lynn, what I'd like to hear from you is less about your story and take 2 minutes to tell us the process you went through to get your book published. And by the way, that's going to be the same question for the other two.
My book, Under a Desert Sky, was traditionally published by Revell Publication. They decided to do, although it's a cancer story, they went more for a struggle through life story, because in their words, cancer stories don't sell, which I thought was interesting because with 1.6 million people diagnosed with cancer every year, you would think it's a big market, but it turns out they usually go for a more broad. And to be traditionally published, you need to get an agent. And I met my agent through a friend of mine who had been published with this agency, and she recommended me. And then it was the process of writing a proposal, which is, this is what the book would, this would be who would buy the book. And this is how I would market the book. And this is the first 5 chapters, and here's an outline. It's a 25 to 35 page document that the publishing house requires, and that goes through several steps, and at any stage it can be rejected, but my editor really went to bat for me and said, you know, this is an unknown person. She doesn't have the platform that we normally need to sell a book, but we think her story is valuable and we want to market it.
Well, I mentioned that I felt like I was an accidental author, so my story evolved and was birthed out of course, my experiences. And how I actually wrote is kind of just the process of taking all the journals I kept, all the records I kept, all the thoughts I kept, all the feelings I kept down, and I had all the journals of that, and I just started putting them in some kind of an order, and then over time, people just really encouraged me. When they would hear the story, they say, you know, you really need to share that, and I never thought about sharing it, but other than for myself to having a written document of it, but they said, you know, you really need to share your story. So I started trying to do that, and I'm an avid book reader. I love books, and so I sat down and I just started putting down what I thought might be interesting about my story, and that's kind of, you know, basically what I did. It was kind of hit and miss here and there. I'm not trained to, in any sense of the word. I just, God in me. You know, I just kind of trained myself to sit down and do it and write, and was inspired many times by other people and the Lord's help, and found somebody who was willing or gullible enough to take my manuscript once it was done, because it was huge. I wrote, you know, just put everything down I could think of, and they worked through it and waded through it and edited it and made it doable for them to put into book form. So.
I really don't know how to answer that question exactly, because I had so many miracles given to me by God, and I began sharing them one at a time along the way, and every time I would lead women's Bible study or work with a group, I would tell them one more thing that had happened, and it's amazing, and it just became so many miracles. People began saying, please write that down. Write that down. We need to remember all these miracles that have happened in your life, and just was encouraged. It took me 16 years to get encouraged, but that's how I came to finally put it down on paper.
Okay. So there are 2 basic ways that people get published. One is, you said, traditional publisher. The other, sometimes people refer to it as self-published, which is really not accurate. It's independently published. So I've written 35 books. And the first 5 or 6 books I had traditional, and then I really discovered that publishers that's a wrong term. Now this is, some publishers would call me perjorative, but publishers are really printers. The reason you put a 35-page document together is you need to tell me how to sell your book and how many copies you're going to sell for me to decide that it's worth publishing. So, and you get 10, 12% royalty or something like that. And so after I published my first couple of books, and 22 of the 35 books are still in print, but I have evergreen topics. I thought, okay, I make 12% and I'm selling 60% of the books. So I started my own publishing company, which is the same as independently publishing, because then I made 80%. And so a lot of my books have been done that way until I had a publisher come and say, we'd like to do 10 as a library. And so my wife has an agent. I've never had an agent. So I'm like the weirdest duck in the galaxy when it comes to book publishing. The thing that I would say is that anybody can write a book, and anybody can put the book in print. There are printers here in town that I mean you can get somebody on Fiverr. I mean, if you're not concerned about high-end editing, you should have somebody besides you edit your book. But if you're not worried about high-end editing, you can get somebody on Fiverr that for $75 will format your book so it looks fabulous. And you can get somebody on Fiverr that for $75 will create a fabulous cover. And then you can go to a printing company here in town that'll print 200 copies of the book for about $350. And you may never give 200 copies away. But a lot of times with independent publishers, they require that you buy 1,500 to 3,000 copies. And there are so many people that have that number of books in their garages. So I'm all for print on demand and print what you need and to do whatever you need to do to get your story out there. So I'd like you to take 90 seconds at your table to come up with one question you'd like to ask this panel. And you can direct it at a person, you can direct it at everybody, but take 90 seconds at your table, see if you can come up with one question you'd like to ask this panel. It could be about the stories they told earlier, it could be about the video that you saw Jan in, it could be about anything we've said just here, just now. So 90 seconds at your table. Your group leader will be the person at the table that has been at Crossroads the longest. So some of you that are visitors, you just got out of it, but we expect to see you tomorrow. And so check it out and see what you come up with. Hey, thank you very much. Who wants to ask the first question? All right, I saw your hand over there, and use your projection voice. Is this loud enough? Yes, barely. Okay, who do you want to ask that? Okay, to everybody, all right. Has your book accomplished its purpose?
When my book was first published, I will tell you I had visions of tens of thousands of copies of being sold, which was not reality. But what my book has accomplished, it is a door opener to opportunity that I could never have imagined when I first started writing. And for that, I am thankful.
The thing that I feel like my book has done is turned into a ministry. It reaches those that have heartache and troubles or have gone through something really deep and really serious and blindsided, and I feel like my book has reached and helped many. I mean, at least the feedback I've gotten.
Well, I concur with Jan. I think my book is not for everyone. It's not maybe even so much for an American audience, but that's what the reward for me for writing has been, is to encourage anyone who has gone through loss of adoption, a child, or have lost their natural parents, or any kind of trauma and pain. I think that's where my book really speaks into and ministers the most to, and that's my heart. I'm not a public speaker, but my heart is to minister and to reach hurting people. So.
Okay. Okay, who has, okay?
Actually, I wrote during teaching Bible study all those years. I wrote down daily the things I was going through, the places I had to be, the lawsuits, the men that helped me, and I kept those notes. And when I went to the grandparenting seminar 2-3 years ago, they were saying that you could do it into a snapfish, just a little snapfish book. And so I told the man in charge 2-3 lines, and he gave it to an author, Elaine, and she says, this is not a snapfish, this is a book. So I would never have imagined it being a book. I thought it was just going to be something to give to you and you as a memory of what God has done in my life. So it turned out to be a God thing, not me. Okay, she's a ghost writer. And if you feel like you can't write a book, you can get someone that is an author to help you do that.
Now, I will say, anytime somebody tells you, I can do that for you, the first thing you do is grab your wallet. Because unless it's a fixed fee, you can find that it just becomes an unending drain of, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to do the other. So I would suggest that, for example, if you go on Amazon, you can find a number of books about writing your first book. And it'll give you, here are the 22 steps to independent publishing. And it'll take you through it one by one by one by one. And, it's progress, not perfection. It doesn't matter what the first book looks like. Because I guarantee you that there's nothing I've ever written that after I wrote it the first time, I couldn't improve it 50% the second time. So the first thing is you get it written, and then the second, and that's where an editor comes in. You get it, and then they clean it up. Okay, who has a question? Yes. Okay, who's the question directed at? Who's the question directed? Whoever wants it. Did anybody ever have an editor push back and say we need to make huge changes?
I'm going to be real honest here. I met Elaine.
No, lie.
Oh, that wouldn't be me. Oh. I met Elaine through the Courageous Grandparenting, and they sent her my way. She met Elaine through a book sale in Kansas, or a boutique, and we happened to live in the Phoenix area. I did not know her till we both had the same ghostwriter. But we both will tell you that we spent way over a budget with a ghostwriter. You are so right. I don't want to not recommend it, but I just want to say that if I had just let her edit it.
In a couple of minutes, I will tell you that nobody can tell your story the way you do.
That's it, yeah, that's it.
Nobody can tell your story the way you do. And and you may think you're a horrible writer. You are not. There are so many easy ways to improve whatever it is you've written. And frankly, I'll put it this way. It is sheer laziness to say, I can't write, I'm going to hire a ghostwriter. Because it's like saying, I don't want to do it. It's too hard. It's too hard. Bleh, bleh, bleh. Too hard. You know, well, you yell at your grandkids for doing that. It's too hard. Oh, suck it up. You know, I walk 5 miles uphill in the snow to school, both ways. You know, and so you know, it's like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You know, if you just said, I'm going to spend 15 minutes a day, and I'm not going to think about anything else but doing something to write that book. You know, if you did 2 pages a day, in a year, you'd have 700 pages. Well, the average book is only 250. And that's only taking 15 minutes a day. Yep.
I didn't have so much run-ins with my editor, but what I appreciated about my editor is that she saw blind spots in my manuscript that I didn't see myself, specifically because it was cancer story of both my parents and myself. She said, there is not enough of your experience in the pages. It was easy for me to write about my parents, for example, and so she really challenged me to dig deeper into my own story, which I appreciated.
Yeah, and the thing to remember is that a ghostwriter is not an editor. So even if you had somebody ghostwrite, you would still need an editor to clean up what the ghostwriter wrote. An editor takes whatever's written and really polishes it, and that's where the difference comes in. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say about the conflict between what you want an author wants to write and say, and an editor may have difference of opinion. And I ran across that quite a bit. I mean, a little bit. But and what was important to me, and there was give and take. Like, she would polish it and help maybe an order of the sentence or something for me if it was kind of rough. But I didn't want to lose my voice. And the problem with my story was a little bit unique because it's a Greek story. It's different in that capacity, but someone else trying to write my kind of history that's not familiar with it and comfortable with it may approach it a different way than I wanted to. And this kind of happened once in a while. So I would say, okay, I'll give here, you know, I'll do that, we can tweak this and that. But I wanted to make sure my voice remained my voice, that my book remained me.
Okay, Mark, did you have a question? Well, the interesting thing, back in the early 70s, I took a course on the art of written salesmanship. And the guy that wrote it had been mentored by a guy who back in the 20s made $100,000 a year in royalty commissions writing sales copy. And he coined the term selling in print. And he said that if most salespeople had to read aloud the advertisements that their company puts together, they'd be laughed out of their client's office. Because when people write, they tend to write in such a stilted way. And he said the best writing is writing that sounds natural. So actually, if you're a good oral communicator then simply audio recording and then transcribing is a great way to do it. And a lot of times you don't even want to clean it up to make it totally grammatically correct, because people get the sense when they're reading it that that's you. So, no, I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that at all. But I think that that the biggest thing, I know pastors that have years and years and years of tapes of their sermons. Well, that'd be a great place to start with content, because almost every sermon has a great story or two in it. And so it may not be your story, but sometimes we tell stories that we extract a lesson from. And it's a lesson that people need to learn. In just a... Oh, there's a hand? I know there's a hand. All right, you've got 30 seconds, and then we got 2 minutes to answer the question. Kimball?
Not for me.
All right, Jan says not from her. All right, go ahead.
And thank you for asking. I do, as a matter of fact, and right in the process, almost finished, of having it translated into Greek by a Greek editor in Greece, and that's where my heart is to have this book published in Greece for my people, that anyone who has, gone through this, lost a child, this is to minister to them. This is my gift to them. So yes, this is going to be a sequel, and then I'm having the original rewritten too, because it's been changed a little bit from the Greek into the Greek. So I wanted to, complement that. So that's my plan.
I'm back writing the proposal, the 25 to 35 page document to see about a second book.
Okay, and I've been averaging a book a year for the last 30 years. I'm not writing so much here, but I've published 5 books in Japanese in the last 5 years. So, in just a moment, we're going to take a break, and the new group leader will be responsible for getting the group back on time. And if you're wondering